Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Hello, everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we are going to be talking about Cobra Kai, the last season that was split up into 3 parts, but we're going to be talking about all 3 parts. We held off to talk about it until all 3 parts were done. We've also got an On the Horizon segment. We've got a news segment with quite a few news stories and 4 trailers to go over. But let's start things off with our On the Horizon segment.
On the horizon.
On the Horizon is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so, and we're going to start things off with the 97th Annual Academy Awards, hosted by Conan O'Brien. That's coming on Sunday, March 2nd to ABC and Hulu. I just made my plans. I'm actually going to watch this one. I haven't watched the Oscars in several years, and usually when I do watch the Oscars, I'm just kind of like half paying attention, but I'm actually kind of excited, not necessarily because of the movie shown, but because I'm a huge Conan O'Brien fan. So I'm going to watch that and make it one of my cheat days, and we're going to get some barbecue and sit down and watch some Oscars. Hopefully it's good.
Nice.
Then we got Daredevil Born Again is coming on Tuesday, March 4th to Disney+. They've been promoting the hell out of this recently. It still doesn't feel like it's this close, does it? Like, it's so close now, but it doesn't feel like it's coming up this soon. I'm gonna have to resubscribe to Disney+. But I'm sure we'll talk about Born Again at some point.
We should be.
Yeah. Once it's over, we'll talk about it. We've got Deli Boys. We talked about the trailer for that. Was it last week or the week before? Somewhere like that. That's coming on Thursday, March 6th to Hulu. That's the one that's about the 2 brothers and they're running a deli with their father, and their father dies, and then they find out he's like involved in this whole crime business. But that's coming Thursday, March 6th on Hulu. Split Fiction, which is from the maker of It Takes Two, is coming on Thursday, March 6th to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. This is one of the ones that I'm sure we're also probably going to see something of, maybe as soon as in an April Nintendo Direct.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of video games, Suikoden 1 and 2 Remaster is finally coming out. I thought for a while this was like already out. It's taken so long for this to come out. But it'll be coming out finally on Thursday, March 6th to PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and Switch. And then lastly, Mickey 17. We talked about Parasite last week, with the same director. That's going to be coming on Friday, March 7th to theaters. This is the one with Robert Pattinson, where he plays a bunch of clones of himself. Class issues ensue. But that is it for our On the Horizon segment. And now we're moving on to our news segment, On Beats. On Beat. As I mentioned, On Beat is our news segment. Our first story is that Amazon/MGM has gained control of the James Bond franchise. The James Bond company has basically stepped aside. Amazon and MGM already owned the rights to James Bond, but now they have full creative control.
Yeah, which means we're going to get a new movie, obviously, but that also means series, a whole bunch of spin-offs, all this kind of stuff. Amazon is going to milk it for all they can get out of it and just squeeze the life out of the franchise.
Yeah.
Until it's dead, unfortunately.
I'm not too terribly invested in James Bond, so it doesn't matter too much to me. But one thing to kind of bring up is that the company that was in control wasn't necessarily making all the best decisions. When this article, everything about this came out, I actually read something about Christopher Nolan pitched them to do a James Bond movie, and they turned him down.
Oh, yeah.
Seems kind of dumb.
They didn't so much turn him down as the way I read it, it said they wouldn't give him final cut, and so he walked away.
Still dumb.
Yeah, still dumb. And I mean, it makes sense to me because Barbara Broccoli has been pretty protective and controlling of the franchise.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like when you step into that role of doing it, you were doing things like her way from
It's
the
her own ego, I think, largely.
Yeah, but I think also because like she inherited the franchise from her father,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like a family thing where she has to, she's trying to like honor her father's legacy by not.
So no Christopher Nolan, but yay, Jeff Bezos.
Yay, Jeff Bezos. Man,
The Bond villain the guy who looks like a straight up Bond villain is in charge of James Bond.
He is a literal Bond villain.
Another interesting story I heard is that a lot of musicians have tried to do it like a James Bond song for like a movie,
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ones that got turned down, like that's just kind of insane that they're fully recorded a song, I guess, and it was turned down was Radiohead.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Put those two together. Christopher Nolan directed James Bond movie with a theme by Radiohead.
The next one should have a theme by Cannibal Corpse.
Chris Barnes or Corpse Grinder? Which one?
Corpse Grinder. Get Gwar to do the next one.
Unfortunately, the real creative talent behind Gore passed away. So.
Yeah, it's sad.
But that's Amazon controlling James Bond. I think there's like just lots of jokes in there to be made. Like we'd said, Bezos pretty much is a Bond villain, so.
Yeah, he basically is, so there you go.
Yeah. Our next news story, Supernatural alumni Jared Padalecki and Misha Collins have been cast in the final season of The Boys. For those who don't know, Jared Padalecki played Sam and Misha Collins played Castiel.
Yeah, and Jensen Ackles, who is already in The Boys, is going to be in the new season of The Boys, played Dean Winchester. It was the trio. This is like literally only relevant to Supernatural fans.
Yeah, and then you have Jim Beaver, who played Bobby Singer in both.
Yes.
His character is named Bobby Singer in both Supernatural and The Boys. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who showed up last season as kind of a vision inside Butcher's head. So, yeah, you've got a lot of Supernatural alums, but these are kind of like the big three.
Yeah, these are the big three, like the main protagonists of the series. So yeah. People had been speculating, when are they going to get Jared involved? But they're
he was busy with other stuff. I think at the time when Jensen Ackles joined the cast with Soldier Boy and stuff, that was around when Jared was doing Walker, Texas Ranger and stuff. That's all ended now. So it seems like there's a free spot in the calendar, and that's kind of how it worked out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So pretty cool to see that.
Undisclosed roles, by the way. No, they haven't announced anything about what their roles are. And we don't even know if any of these actors are going to be on screen together at the same time. It would be really cool if they were, but
it would be really cool. Yeah, we don't know anything about that. I mean, obviously we know Jensen Ackles is Soldier Boy.
Because he already played him, yeah. But I mean, who knows? Maybe he won't be playing Soldier Boy. Maybe he'll be playing somebody from a different dimension. They'll make some multiverse joke.
Maybe he'll be like literally Sam and Dean and Castiel. They just show up out of nowhere.
That would make it the best season of The Boys, in my opinion. Our next news story is actress, writer, producer Ayo Edebiri. You might know her from The Bear, what she's been in recently. And she is going to be writing, not necessarily starring in, but writing and maybe producing or being involved as a producer.
I think what I read is she's going to write and she's going to star in it.
I read she wasn't going to star in it, or like there was no plans for her to star in it, at least yet.
Huh. Yeah,
so,
okay.
I don't know. It's still sparse details.
It's some kind of
a Barney. Yeah, it's a movie based on Barney, licensed by Mattel, and being done by A24.
It's being produced by Daniel Kaluuya.
Yeah, and his production company, yeah.
It's being described as an adult take on the material, and we don't really have any details of what form this is going to take, what shape this is going to arrive in.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that this is like the kind of thing you could imagine being made that references Barney, but can't actually have it be Barney because of a licensing issue or something.
Yeah, but Mattel doesn't seem to give a crap, so it's...
Yeah, that's what's so crazy. This is like the kind of thing you'd imagine A24 doing that kind of parodies Barney and is doing this kind of adult thing, but we could never get the actual company involved and backing it. And yet...
Death to Smoochie.
Yeah, and yet, here you got the actual company is involved.
Right, oh yeah.
That's crazy. The idea that Mattel's next license movie is being done by A24 alone is just what?
Yeah, it's just a total what the F thing, and we don't have any details. So
Yeah.
we don't know. There's not really anything to give us any guidance on what to expect here, except for like the unexpected, I guess.
Yeah. Our next news story, and this is still rumor territory, there's nothing confirmed here yet, is that Kathleen Kennedy will apparently retire as the boss of Star Wars, and the rumored replacement right now is going to be Dave Filoni and/or
It could also be Jon Favreau.
that's
or
it.
Be...
Jon Favreau's name just completely slipped my head for some reason.
It's funny because like we discussed this at length before the podcast too. Yeah.
This is my ADD brain. No short-term memory. It just goes
Oh,
away.
I know all about that. I know all about the ADHD.
Yeah, Dave Filoni and/or Jon Favreau being heavily rumored to fill the role, with Kathleen Kennedy stepping aside as Star Wars boss. Again, this is still rumor. A bunch of stories came out today refuting the rumor, saying that the rumor was debunked by a report by CNN. If you actually read that report, it doesn't even really debunk it. It just basically says, in other words, it says no comment.
It's kind of crazy to me because people expect Kathleen Kennedy is going to be like, oh shit, well, I guess since the Hollywood Reporter reported it, yep, I'm retiring. Like, that's not how anything works.
Yeah. She's just, whether she is or not, she's going to confirm on her own schedule.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah.
I mean, the thing is, like,
I want to say right off the bat, neither Will or I are involved in the more toxic aspects of the Star Wars fandom that think that Star Wars was ruined by Kathleen Kennedy because she's too woke. Neither of us have really subscribed to that.
I really, really hate that we have to clarify that.
Yeah.
I really do, because, like, man, fuck those people.
But the second part to that is that I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is a good steward for Star Wars either. I don't think it has anything to do with her being woke. I just think she's not good at her job. You know, she's not good in that role. And I'm glad to see somebody that's more creative and more in tune with the universe be involved. Like Dave Filoni, you know, would be a great pick for that, you know?
Here's the thing about, and I might give her some grace, because I'm sure, like, there's a lot of corporate meddling from, like, Disney.
Oh, yeah
executives
obviously.
in Star Wars. You know, I'm sure, like, everything has been, like, 100% her decision. But I look at it, and look at all the canceled projects, like, they've announced and, like, didn't happen.
Yeah,
and
they did the one with the
like,
Game
absurd.
of Thrones creators that were going to do, like, a trilogy.
Game of Thrones?
That was canceled.
Yeah, like,
Ryan
Rogue
Johnson
One.
was going to do, I think, a movie or a trilogy as well. That was canceled.
That was canceled. Rogue One, by the woman who directed Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
That got canceled. Kevin Feige was going to do a Star Wars movie.
Rogue One. Rogue One was the one, isn't that the one we got?
Oh,
we got
yeah,
Rogue
no,
One.
no,
You're
Rogue
thinking Rogue
Squadron.
Leader or Rogue Squadron or
Yeah, Rogue Squadron. That got cut. You know, then, like, the Kevin Feige movie got canceled. They keep announcing things and then canceling them. Okay, like, one or two projects, sure, but it became, like, an absurd amount, like, almost like a meme. Like,
well,
they're
also
gonna
think
get
about
up there.
how long it's been since we've had a Star Wars movie with all the projects that were supposed to be in development.
Oh, yeah.
It's been years without a Star Wars movie. And then you look across the aisle to something also being done by Disney with Marvel. And Marvel will have an off year where they only have one movie come out that year.
Yeah, Marvel has at least one movie coming out every year. Most years, it's multiple movies. They have, like, 3 movies out this year.
Now, obviously, putting out quantity like that doesn't necessarily mean it's for the best. And some people would probably say, and there's some truth to it, that the MCU would probably be better if they had a little bit more quality control and were a little bit more selective. But that's not what's going on here. The reason we're not getting all these Star Wars movies isn't because there's like a high bar of quality control. It's because there's problems happening at the studio. Like obvious problems. There's fallout, there's arguments, there's projects that go into development and are being canceled later.
There's always been, like, quality control. First of all, like, the sequel trilogy should have been, like, the big comeback. They kind of, like, botched that. The movies did well, but it was, like, creatively they botched it, because, like, they didn't create it as, like, a cohesive trilogy. Mm-hmm. They kind of, like, they hired J.J. Abrams to write one movie, and then, like, they optioned him to write the other 2, and then he didn't write the second one. Wasn't involved at all in the second one. Then he came back to write the third one, but it was never, like, some cohesive
They brought in
thing.
Ryan Johnson for the second movie, and he basically just took everything J.J. Abrams set up and said, I'm just gonna piss all over this. And
yeah, I'm gonna piss all over
all
this.
That shit.
Yeah, fuck having a cohesive, like, trilogy, a cohesive narrative across 3 3 movies. Like, goddamn, we can't do that. That was boneheaded from the jump. And then they did like this Han Solo like origin movie like nobody was asking for. I thought that
fell apart. Wasn't like Lord and Miller originally supposed to do that, and then like
Yes.
Ron Howard took over or something?
Yeah, Ron Howard took it over because like Lord and Miller had a take which Kathleen Kennedy didn't like. Again, like so stupid to let them go just because you wanted something safe. That was the thing. She wanted, it needs to be safe. It needs to be cozy, and we have to have like Han Solo get his name Solo from like some stupid thing in the movie. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
And then, and then there's a raft of like announced and canceled projects. Like she kept announcing things. Taika Waititi was supposed to be directing a Star Wars film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on. What are you doing? Why are you canceling all this stuff?
Yeah.
It's just, come on. They're going to get up there at the next celebrations and they're going to freaking announce, we got a new Star Wars film coming from Christopher Nolan. And a few months later, they're going to be, it's canceled.
This is the funny thing, because there's maybe 3 or 4 distinct groups of fans that all kind of hate the other groups, and all of them are celebrating Kathleen Kennedy retiring, and all of them hate each other, and all of them have different reasons why they think Kathleen Kennedy's not good at the thing. So that just shows you, like, when you have, like, basically all the disparate parts of the fandom all kind of collectively hate her for different reasons, that tells you there's an issue. But,
oh yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so that's still rumor territory. We can't confirm it, nothing's confirmed there, but it's looking to be the case. We'll just have to see as stuff comes up, I imagine we'll probably know by, like, I don't know, Star Wars Day or something. By May 4th, we should kind of have a better idea about this. And then our last news story before we get into the trailer is part of our segment within a segment, Zaslav Watch. Do-do-do-do-do-do, Zaslav. Do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah, Zaslav Watch. Zaslav was particularly villainous this week because he shut down some studios from Warner Bros. Games, which Warner Bros. San Diego, which I don't know too much about, so I'm not going to get into that, really. Clear First Games, who did Multiverses, which was their Warner Bros. Take on Smash Brothers. You know what the funny thing is about Multiverses that I found out?
What's that?
And it's probably not going to be, like, super relevant to you, because, like, I know you don't care. It's still, like, an interesting, like, kind of, like, stupid thing anyway, is Warner Bros. They used to have, like, their properties like DC and stuff in, like, Fortnite and other games like that, but, like, mostly Fortnite. And then they took down all the DC stuff from Fortnite after Multiverses launched, and we found out it's because after they launched Multiverses, they decided, like, that was going to be where, like, all the Warner Bros. Stuff is, and we're not going to license Warner Brothers characters out to, like, other companies.
Because why not do both?
Yeah, why not do both?
Boneheaded corporate decisions.
Yeah, boneheaded corporate decisions. Yeah, exactly.
There's another studio, though, that's a bigger loss.
That's a bigger loss. Monolith.
For any people that play the games I do, take a breath of relief. Warner Brothers does not own Monolith Soft. That is Nintendo. This has nothing to do with them. This is a different studio called Monolith.
One of the things that's nice about Nintendo is Xenoblade Chronicles can only sell like 1 million copies, and Nintendo will still fund those games even though they're like massive hundreds, over 100-hour like experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Because Nintendo can, but also, like, they just have a different philosophy.
Monolith Soft for Nintendo, which is, again, a different company from Monolith Productions, which is the one we're talking about this post.
Monolith Productions is, especially if you were a PC gamer, is pretty huge. They have, like, a bunch of big franchises, well-loved games, like the Fear series was pretty well-loved. They did No One Lives Forever, No One Lives Forever 2. They did that.
You're probably most known for Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War, which were like Lord of the Rings licensed games.
Yeah, which were really, really fantastic games. Like,
they had a gameplay system called the Nemesis system that is kind of adored by the industry, and a lot of other developers would like to use something like it, but Warner Brothers owns like a trademark or a copyright on that's basically blocking anybody else from doing this.
They came up with the idea where, like, enemies will remember you. And, if you kill them, it will remember, when it respawns, it will remember that you killed them, and it will be more aggressive or be more aggressive in seeking you out.
So it ends up kind of creating like a little sub-story that's like random within the story of the game, you know, where you'll encounter this character again and again that's like reconfronting you and holding grudges and stuff. Yeah, and it's really one of the more clever gameplay mechanics, and it's very beloved. Like I said, a lot of studios would love to use it, but Warner Bros. Basically holds on to that with like an iron fist and doesn't let anybody else use it. And Monolith was making a Wonder Woman game that was kind of highly anticipated. People were looking for it. I don't think we've seen anything from it. We just knew it existed. I think we got like a teaser that was like no gameplay or anything shown.
Yeah, we got a super early teaser, and like the last report about it was like it was still years away from coming out. I mean, but you hear that's game development. I have my own opinions on like announcing things before they are anywhere near ready to be released.
You mean like a bunch of Star Wars properties that aren't going to come?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. That seems to be like a reoccurring problem. Yeah, apparently it wasn't coming together well and it was canceled, and that's fine. Games get canceled, but Warner Bros. Decided to also just cancel the entire studio with the project, which is kind of stupid.
Yeah, I mean, what happened to the days of selling off a studio that you didn't know what to use for anymore? Like, you have a storied studio. Like, that's the way to describe Monolith Productions. They are a storied studio. They have recognition. They have fame. They have popularity. They have distinction. This is a company you could sell. Why do you close it down when you could sell it?
Yeah.
I just don't get, like, what's happening. I think there's lots of publishers that would have bought Monolith Productions.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think so too. They could have made money off of that. Yeah. It makes no sense to me. Warner Brothers put out a statement, and the statement reads, quote, "We have had to make some very difficult decisions to structure our development studios and
tax write-off.
Yeah. And investments around building the best games possible with our key franchises: Harry Potter, Mortal Kombat, DC, and Game of Thrones."
I guess they forgot that Wonder Woman is DC.
Yeah, I guess they forgot Wonder Woman's in DC, yeah. So they listed those 4 properties as their key franchises. After careful consideration, we are closing 3 of our development studios: Monolith Productions, Player First Games, and Warner Bros. Games San Diego. This is a, quote, strategic change in direction and not a reflection of these teams or the talent that consists within them. The development of Monolith's Wonder Woman video game will not move forward. Our hope was to give players and fans the highest quality experience possible for this iconic character, and unfortunately that is no longer possible within our strategic priorities.
But a bunch of executives that know nothing about what a quality experience would be have decided that this doesn't match up to the quality experience that fans probably would have wanted.
Exactly. And they go, "This is another tough decision as we recognize Monolith's storied history of delivering epic experiences through amazing games. We greatly admire the passion of the 3 teams and thank all employees for their contributions. As difficult as today is, we remain focused and excited about getting back to producing high-quality games for our passionate fans and developed by our world-class studios and getting our games business back to profitability and growth in 2025 and beyond."
P.S. Tax write-off.
P.S. Tax write-off. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's such shit.
Yeah. That's gonna be, whenever you guys hear a Zaslav Watch segment, get ready for shit. Cause that's kind of what it is. That's how we're reporting it. But yeah, that's our regular news segment. And now we're going to move on to our trailers. And we're going to be starting things off with The Actor, which had an absolutely stunning trailer. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend checking out the trailer for The Actor. The transitions are stunning. It's just absolutely beautiful.
It looks great.
Andy Kaufman's involved in this.
It said like he's producing it.
Yeah.
It looks completely trippy. It's about a guy who is experiencing amnesia, and he may have been an actor, and I think they're kind of like taking, I don't know if like I made this up in my head, maybe. Sounds like an interesting idea, is where like he's an actor with amnesia and he doesn't know which persona is him. He doesn't have grounding for like a part that he played as an actor. Mm-hmm. Is that like the real him, or is that not? something like that.
It's got such a cool style that's got, like, I don't know for sure, but I imagine a lot of these kind of like weird transition effects and stuff are like practical in a similar way to like, I'm sure you've probably seen it. Have you seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
I have not.
Okay. Well, it's Michel Gondry. It was a really good movie, and Jim Carrey was in it, and they did like really crazy things that people thought were like these like crazy CG shots, but they were all done kind of practical with these very like kind of like stage play ideas of like how to pull things off, and it just gave these really beautiful transitions and things, and there's a lot of like that kind of stuff going on in this trailer. It very much reminded me of Eternal Sunshine. So yeah, I think it's an absolutely stunning looking movie. So I want to see this one.
Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Next, we got a trailer for Wolf King, which I believe it's Netflix, right? Wolf King's Netflix. It's like an animated series based on a novel series about a guy who transforms into a wolf. And it's kind of a fantasy series about a werewolf, basically. Like less horror, more fantasy. But what's interesting here, the reason I would talk about it is they're going for this like low frame rate effect, where it's like they're animating on twos instead of ones, so it's like the animation's a little bit more jarring and rough, which has a really cool effect in like dialogue scenes and stuff, because everything's more stiff, and it just kind of, everything's more stiff and each keyframe is more distinct because of that. So it has like a really cool look, but it kind of falls apart when you get into like these action scenes, and it's almost impossible to follow what's going on because it's just a frame rate mess. Is that kind of, did you know what I'm talking about? Did you get kind of the same impression?
Yeah, I got like pretty much the same impression, yeah.
So like when there's dialogue scenes, it almost looks like it's like claymation or something.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, but when it goes into an action scene, it's like, I can't even follow what's going on. Yeah. This is like an interesting approach that I've seen some animation studios have been taking recently, but I've also noticed it in games. There's that one game that's, I think it's a Microsoft game, or it's either a Microsoft game or just Microsoft is advertising it. That one, what's it called? Oh god, it's that like swampy one.
I don't know.
Is it South of Midnight or something like that?
Oh, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, South of Midnight. It has like a similar look where it's got that very kind of like the faces animated on like twos, so kind of like more distinct keyframes, but a little bit choppier animation. But then they said like, okay, well, our action obviously has to be clear and visible because it's a game, so it doesn't suffer that same issue of the action also being on twos. So it's kind of a interesting approach that we're seeing. Very obviously CG projects kind of leaning into like older visual aesthetics, like stop motion animation aesthetics,
Right.
But that's kind of all I really have to say about it. I don't really know what's going on too much in the story. I haven't read the books or followed any of that. I just thought the animation was a little interesting and worth mentioning. The next trailer we got is for Havoc. This is from the director of The Raid and stars
Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Tom Hardy doing like a pure balls to the wall action film.
Those who don't know, The Raid and The Raid 2 are kind of acknowledged as some of like the best action movies ever made.
They're crazy. They are insane.
It's absolutely nuts, like stunt scenes and stuff like that. And they kind of came around I think The Raid 2 kind of came out around the time of like John Wick, but The Raid came out before John Wick.
Mm-hmm.
But like when John Wick kind of broke out as like, okay, we're just going to make movies that really do action right, and we're going to give stuntmen all the room to like have glory and stuff on screen. And that kind of became like a thing. The Raid was something that was doing that like overseas at the same time, was already kind of doing that before like John Wick was. And although that's not really like John Wick at all, it's got kind of its own stylistic thing to it. This does kind of look a lot like The Raid. Like, the setting's not the same, but like the kind of visual aesthetic is very similar. But it's just going to be like a really good action movie, or it should be, we haven't seen it. We don't know, but it looks like just a really good balls to the wall action movie, as you said.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that is there. And then our last trailer is probably the most Nick Cage thing that's ever Nick Cage since Nick Cage.
It's the surfer, which I don't know how to describe this. It's like this.
You can describe it in 2 words.
Nick Cage.
There you go.
It's this delirious suspense thriller. It starts off innocently enough with Nick Cage, a father, bringing his son to this surfing spot in Australia. He claims that he used to live there. Then the surfer's there, tell him to, like, F off, like he's not only people who live there are allowed to surf there. He insists that, he's lived there before. He knows the area. He's moving into the area. He's kind of like chased off and he's being harassed by like this local group of surfers. And apparently the heat is beating down on him and, like things get like more and more delirious, like
unbalanced,
unbalanced, crazy, and stuff. And it looks like Nicolas Cage is going to like really chew the scenery with this one.
Yeah, this is very Nick Cage. That's just like, we're struggling to describe the effect of this. It's Nick Cage. That's like the best way to describe it, I think.
Yeah.
This is just like true Nick Cage. This is, God, like Wicker Man Nick Cage,
Right, yeah, exactly.
This is, God, what was that vampire movie he did like a long time ago? Not a vampire, was it Vampire's Kiss where he thought he was a vampire?
Yeah, he thinks like he's a vampire.
Yeah, this is like that kind of Nick Cage movie, basically. This isn't that Dream movie. This isn't, Pig. This isn't Renfield. This isn't Ghost Rider. This is like that kind of movie that only Nick Cage could be in. And that's like the only way a movie would make sense is if Nick Cage is in it. And this is like an example of that. Optimal weird Nick Cage, overblown weird moments and stuff. This is what Nick Cage fans have been looking for, I think.
Exactly.
So yeah, just check out that trailer so you can experience all the Nick Cage that has ever Nick Cage.
It's full Nick Cage.
Yeah. That is it for our On Beat segment, and that leaves full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we're going to be talking about Cobra Kai Season 6. We're going to be talking about the series finale. We're going to be talking about all 3 parts of Season 6, how that all worked out and broke down. And we're also going to just be talking about the series in general and where it's going, because there is another Karate Kid movie coming up. And there was some talk from Ralph Macchio about possibly doing a Cobra Kai movie if that was successful. So we're going to kind of go over Cobra Kai, but in particular Season 6. So I watched this as it was coming out. Like as each part was coming out, I watched it, but you held off until all 3 parts were out and then just binged straight through.
I'm kind of glad I did, to be honest, because I think like they did a good job of kind of separating it out into 3 parts, but also it'd be agonizing to wait months between.
I think they did a good job of separating parts 2 and 3.
They did. Part 1 feels like it's a bunch set up. I will say like part 1 is the weakest of the 3 parts just because it's really like a lot more of what you got previously. It's standard Cobra Kai. It's all the existing characters, and they're starting to like rub up against each other and like there's drama forming and there's like a bunch of drama happening with the characters and then that flares up into like, ooh, so there's some bad feelings here and it kind of like, it ends there. Because like the whole setup of the first part is they're trying to choose who they're going to send to represent Miyagi-Do for the Sekai Tekai, and so they're kind of pitting everybody against each other to determine like the best of the best, and there's like a bunch of drama surrounding that.
Well, it's kind of, Season 5 ended, Season 5 was about them learning about the Sekai Tekai and then earning a spot on the Sekai Tekai.
Yes.
And then Season
and also
6
like
starts.
Terry Silver.
Yeah.
For good, supposedly.
Then Season 6 starts up, and Part 1 of Season 6 is just, there's no Sekai Tekai. It's all, who are we going to send to the Sekai Tekai? What's the name of our dojo gonna be at the Sekai Tekai?
Right.
What are the other characters that are opposing us going to do to get ready for the Sekai Tekai? It's all getting ready. It's like you wake up in the morning and you brush your teeth and you put on your shoes and get dressed and everything. That's what this is. That's what Part 1 is, getting dressed in the morning and nothing else.
And I want to say, like, it's still good. It's also kind of, you got moments in there where, Tori runs into Kreese again. Tori's mom dies. She gets messed up. They're having, like, the fights to determine, like, who's going to be, like, the female and male captain for the team. Tori's fighting Samantha for the captain spot, and she's clearly in a bad place, so they try to stop the fight. She acts like everybody's against her and storms off. There's the whole thing with Devin spiking Kenny's water with laxatives causing like a big accident and like, in order to like secure herself a spot going to Barcelona. And then like there's a whole thing like where she suffers from guilt from that.
That's not even in part 1.
That whole thing comes back in part 2. So like all the typical drama and like it's fine. It's good. It's good. It's as good as it's ever been.
It just doesn't go anywhere in part 1.
But then you get to the start of part 2 and you're kind of like, oh, okay, things are like taking like kind of like a different twist. Because they get to the tournament and, and they're fighting Cobra Kai, which we see the new Cobra Kai also in part 1, which was probably the most interesting thing because we meet the new Cobra Kai. We meet the new team captain,
we find out that Master Kim Sun-young is still alive.
Yeah, against all odds.
Yeah.
The old bastard refuses to die because he can't trust anybody else running his dojo.
So he's like 170 or something and still running his dojo, but now John Kreese is going to represent it at the Sekai Tenkai, and we get the new team captain, Kwon Jae-sung.
Yes.
Who's kind of a bully.
He's kind of a bully. He's kind of like a wild child. He's got his own opinions. He's disobedient. And then John Kreese takes him under his wing and kind of like refocuses like his angst into like a really bad place.
Mm-hmm.
Aims him like a weapon. And so we got him as like the team captain for Cobra Kai. So we got the new Cobra Kai. And then we get to Barcelona in the second part and it's kind of like, okay, you're thinking, okay, it's going to be Miyagi-Do versus Cobra Kai. We know that. It's going to be Johnny Lawrence, and Daniel LaRusso versus John Kreese. It's going to be the kids versus Juan Jay. It's going to be like that matchup. And then there's a twist, because there's another team that's like actually good. It's the Iron Dragons, which you kind of like get to meet them a little bit, like pre like the first fight. Like they all have like run-ins with like the key members.
Their male captain's personality is that he's Russian.
Yeah.
And then their female captain is like a Brazilian social media influencer. Their captain is kind of a jerk.
The first event happens in the Sekai Tenkai tournament, and Miyagi-Do loses pretty badly to Cobra Kai. And then Cobra Kai loses pretty badly to the Iron Dragons, which, like, nobody expects. It's like, oh, what?
So now it's like both Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai are kind of like underdogs desperately trying to score up enough points to take on the Iron Dragon.
Yeah, exactly.
They kind of set up a dumb story where Daniel is looking for some person who knew Miyagi.
Oh yeah, because
you find out Miyagi was in the Sekai Tenkai like way back.
Yeah, because like this was continuing on from part 1 where Daniel finds like a box that belongs to Mr. Miyagi that has like a story about Miyagi attacking somebody. Like a robbery happened and Miyagi like attacks somebody and he's looking for like information on that story. And he immediately, like, gets this worry, like, there's some darkness in Miyagi's past that he never told Daniel about. And Daniel has, like, all this angst over it. Like, Miyagi could have done some bad shit. And that's, like, eating him up inside.
So Daniel gets tricked. He kind of prioritizes finding out this information about Miyagi.
He gets like a hot tip
in the tournament.
Yeah, he gets a hot tip after like first events are over. He gets this hot tip and he ditches, right? Yeah.
And immediately gets abducted.
Yeah, immediately
gets put in a cage.
Put in a dog cage. He gets out and he thinks of like, oh, Kreese did this, right? Kreese orchestrated this kidnapping, especially because one of the kidnappers, is Cobra Kai, has a big Cobra Kai tattoo.
That was actually an actor from Karate Kid 3.
Yeah, which they reveal because, like, they flash back to, like, that scene when, like, when it's pointed out.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. They just get everybody, even, like, basically extras.
Yeah. Yeah, to, like, to reprise their roles in this.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I think it's cool. It's, like, a deep love for the franchise.
Yeah.
And then we get our big twist. The twistiest twist of season 6. It's which, John Kreese had nothing to do with Daniel LaRusso's kidnapping. It's the team captain of the Iron Dragons, Terry Silver.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who scouted out Sensei Wolf and got him into the tournament.
Into the second Tekai. Yeah. Because Terry Silver, he wasn't done after season 5.
Yep. Cobra Kai never dies.
Yeah. Cobra Kai never dies.
Yep. That's kind of like part 2 is them like scrounging for points and this drama happening with Daniel and finding out about Terry Silver and stuff. And then part 2 ends on an absolutely fucking insane note.
Oh, it's wild. It's wild.
I thought Cobra Kai like jumped the shark a bit in like its second season when they had the school fight. This is like times 10 that.
Times 10 the school fight. This is like one of the coolest moments of the series. Cause like, yeah, they're going all out. Like, okay, this is gonna hold you over for a while until it comes back, right? We want to do something big to satisfy you until the show comes back. Because like, what happens is a bunch of events happened. Miyagi-Do has just been like shitting it up the entire tournament. They have not been good, and it's mostly been because of like all these fractures between like everybody that like occurred in part 1 and is carrying over to part 2. People are like slighting each other. They're rubbing up against each other. There's all these misunderstandings. There's no trust between any of the characters. And so Miyagi-Do is doing just really badly. And
also throughout all part 1 and part 2, John Kreese is playing with a knife.
Yeah, a knife that he got.
We'll just call it, Kreesoff's knife.
Yeah, Kreesoff. Yeah, he's playing with this knife that he got in part 1 as part of like a test.
It's like a Tonto, which is like a short knife.
Where he gave up his weakness. Johnny Lawrence, you know, he fully expelled himself of his weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So he's playing with that, and like after John Kreese finds out Terry Silver is involved, John Kreese like starts actively looking for some sort of opening where he could jump on Terry and kill him with the knife.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he actively like that seems to be like all he cares about is stabbing Terry Silver to death at that point.
But he loses that knife.
Because he spots Terry and he starts stalking him and he's pushing through like all these people. And
there's a giant brawl going on, yeah.
Yeah, there's a giant brawl going on. And at some point he drops the knife. But we should say why there's a brawl in the first place, because like after the events, they're going like over who's moving forward, who's eliminated. Cobra Kai is eliminated at this point. Miyagi-Do had managed to hang on, get enough points to go forward. But Cobra Kai is going home. And there's this Russian team that doesn't really factor into the plot except for they were moving forward, but they're like disqualified.
Yeah.
Because they were using steroids on their athletes, apparently. And so with their disqualification, Cobra Kai gets to take their place and move forward, you know, which is good for Cobra Kai. And the team captain of that team has it out with like the presenter of the Sekai Tekai, Gunther, who's like who's like the host of like the tournament. So the team captain of that has some like really nasty words for him. They basically get him to back down. But then like when they go back out onto the mat to continue the tournament, that Russian team captain like shows up and basically sucker punches Gunther to the ground, and his team enters, and this basically sparks off the huge fight.
Yeah, televised worldwide.
Occurs, yeah.
In this fight, we said John Kreese is wandering around stalking Terry Silver with his knife that he wants to use to kill him. He ends up dropping it. It gets picked up by Kwon Jae-sung.
It gets picked up by
team leader of Cobra Kai that we had mentioned before.
Yeah, because Kwon Jae-sung, he goes up against Axel. Axel is somebody he can't beat.
Axel is the team leader of the Iron Dragons.
Yeah, the team leader of the Iron Dragons. Kwon cannot stand up to Axel in a fight. So Kwon, he sees the knife and he gets this idea that he's going to go at Axel and then stab him with the knife and kill him. Mm-hmm. Or at least severely injure him. I don't know if Kwon Jae has a specific intention of killing Axel or if he just wants to injure him.
The knife's just kind of like a wild, loose player on the board at this point.
Yeah, at this point. We don't really know his intentions with that. We just know he wants to at least hurt him badly.
He picked it up in an opportunistic way rather than with premeditation or anything. It just happened to be there.
Yeah, it just happened
in the midst of his adrenaline running wild. He picked it up.
And so with knife in hand, he charges at Axel. Axel blocks him. He flies in the opposite direction and he lands on his own knife.
And dies. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
on international television.
Yeah, he died. This is kind of telegraphed by the fact that, while Daniel is investigating Miyagi's past, he finds out Mr. Miyagi was in the Sekai Tekai tournament because Mr. Miyagi's box had, a captain's headband from the Sekai Tekai. He finds that out, and there's blood on the handbag. he gets an old record from Terry Silver of matches that happened during that time period, and they find out somebody died in the Sekai Tekai. He finds out, like, Mr. Miyagi's opponent died, which puts another wrinkle into it, and so the concept of, like, a death at the tournament occurs is brought, to your consciousness. And that's exactly what happens here. So it's kind of like, it's telegraphed.
Yeah, and that ends part 2.
Yep, that ends part 2 on a pretty crazy note. I was kind of like, damn. And then part 3, like, pretty quickly wraps up the Sekai Tekai.
Well, it's
like,
there's no because part 3 takes place a little bit after
there's
part 2. There's a gap.
Tekai. Yeah, there's no gap because it's canceled after Kwan's death.
Mm-hmm.
It's canceled, and really, there was not going to be a Sekai Tekai except Terry Silver shows up again. And he's desperate to restart Sekai Tekai.
Yeah, to continue it and finish it off.
Yeah.
With the Iron Dragons, Cobra Kai, and Miyagi-Do all involved. He approaches Gunther, and Gunther says that he would do it, but only if everybody involved returns.
Yeah, all the captains agree to it. Mm-hmm. And Gunther even says, like, Terry can pick his venue or whatever, but everybody's got to be on board. And predictably enough, the only person who isn't on board is Daniel LaRusso.
Mm-hmm.
For good reasons. Not gonna say, like, just like Danny is off.
Somebody died.
Yeah, somebody died. Yeah, exactly. It's clearly bothering him. Everybody is, like, making plans for their life, like, post, tournament,
Daniel's moving away from karate in general. Like, he's not giving out the bonsai trees at the dealership anymore. He's kind of just distancing himself from karate in general. The kids are trying to get ready for college and work out their college opportunities, and Johnny's got a kid on the way, and he's, like, concerned about that and trying to make sure everything works out there.
Well, Johnny, like, really wants to finish the tournament because he thinks...
Kreese is kind of done. He's, like, decided that he doesn't want to be involved anymore. He blames himself, rightfully so, for the death that occurred.
Kwan's death, like, has, like, this transformative awakening for Kreese. He's finally, like, able to see what an asshole he's been this entire time because of that.
I think that aspect is probably the best part of this entire season.
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because that plays into, like, several pretty emotional and powerful scenes that happen later on.
Oh, yeah. Kreese's sort of redemption arc, it plays most heavily into Johnny's story, which...
And Tori. Johnny and Tori are the big ones.
Yeah. Which, if you don't know, like, part 3... And I love part 3. I think it's perfect ending too because like it brings it back to this is Johnny Lawrence's story. Cobra Kai was always a series about Johnny Lawrence. He's the main protagonist of the show.
Mm-hmm. Well, the entirety of Cobra Kai is like a Johnny Lawrence redemption arc, and then that's what it comes back to.
Yes, that's what it comes back to. Yeah,
yeah. But Terry visits Johnny to convince him, and Johnny is like, well, I'm on board, but Daniel's never going to be on board. And then somehow Terry convinces Johnny to take him to see Daniel and then have a conversation. Johnny shows up at Daniel's house and says, hey, do you trust me? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, no, just tell me, do you trust me? And he said, yes. And then Terry Silver's like walks out of the shadows.
Terry Silver makes his impassioned plea to Daniel to agree to it.
Johnny puts some clues together and realizes that Terry's dying.
Yeah.
Because he had seen him at the hospital. When he had gone to the hospital to see his girlfriend who's pregnant, Miguel's mom, when he went to go for there, he saw him there. And then when he realized how desperate Terry Silver was for this competition to go back on and his comments about like legacy and finishing things off, he realizes, oh, he's dying. And he points that out. So now we know that Terry Silver's on his way out.
Yeah. Daniel doesn't agree to Terry's pace, but after Terry leaves, Daniel, like, agrees to continue the tournament for Johnny's sake.
Well, it's for Johnny and for the kids, like, so everybody could have closure.
Yeah.
And so he agrees to it, and then basically they get to stipulate all the conditions, and it's basically now the Sekai Tenkai, or Taikai is the All Valley.
Yeah. They're holding it in the valley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're taking over the All Valley competition and turning it into the end of the Sekai Taikai.
Yep, and it's just 3 fights. Now it's between, like, the male and female captains of the Iron Dragons.
What's the runner-up fight for the...
Oh, yeah, for
the female.
Yeah, for the female. And then it's, like, the team captain of Miyagi-Do versus the Iron Dragons, so it's Robbie versus Axel.
Yeah, it's Robbie versus Axel, and then it's supposed to be Tori versus Samantha.
Tori versus Samantha, yeah.
And then whoever wins that versus Zara, who is like the influencer character from the Iron Dragon.
But then, they have the match between Axel and Robbie, and we see Terry Silver is fully up to his old tricks. They have Axel cheat and seriously injure Robbie's leg to the point where he can no longer compete. And Terry Silver and, his team captain that he selected for the Iron Dragons, Sensei Wolf, are really pushing this philosophy onto Axel and the others that they have to do permanent damage to their opponents. They can't let them get back up and get another point.
It's basically Karate Kid 1 with the sweep the leg.
Well, yeah, with the sweep the leg. So Robbie's out, and with Robbie out, Miyagi-Do is down. They're to the point where, they have no hope of winning.
Because it's not just who wins. It's not just a straight tournament like the winner goes. It's it's tallied up points over time.
Yeah, it's tallied up points over time, yeah. And they're even if Samantha wins her match and stuff, they can't get enough points to come back. That's when Samantha, before the next events, that's when Samantha makes her decision that she doesn't want to fight. And also because of a dream Daniel has where we get to see a CGI Miyagi.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel finally remembers one of the core teachings of Miyagi-Do, which is Miyagi-Do is all about defense. And part of defense is
knowing when not to fight, yeah.
Yeah, part of defense is having these tools so that you don't have to fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gun, hopefully, so that you don't have to use it.
Tori wanted to drop out, but Samantha convinced her to.
Yeah, Samantha
to go back in.
Convinced her to go back in. Yeah, and she agreed. We have all these great scenes with Samantha and Tori, Miguel and Robbie and stuff. And then so for the finals, we see Cobra Kai comes back. We see Tori and Miguel come out in Cobra Kai gi, and Johnny in a Cobra Kai gi. Cobra Kai is back under Johnny Lawrence as sensei. And this time with Daniel LaRusso's full approval.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel's got over his prejudice against Cobra Kai, and now he's helping and cheering on. Initially, it's Johnny Lawrence, Miguel, and Tori come out all Cobra Kai'd out. And then, everybody, all the Miyagi-Do students come out all Cobra Kai'd out.
Yeah, that's
including Daniel.
That's at the end. Daniel actually, purchases the old Cobra Kai dojo in the strip mall and gives it to Johnny.
Mm-hmm. I think the way they set it up is that he didn't buy it, but he worked out a lease agreement.
A lease agreement, yeah. For Johnny.
So now you got the Cobra Kai twist, and the Iron Dragons are like, what the fuck, this is bullshit, and Terry's like, no, they're former Cobra Kai, they can do it,
Yeah.
And
they're all former Cobra Kai, it's legal.
Yeah, and then we get to the final fight between Miguel and Axel, and it's a big fight. Long story short, Miguel wins.
They tell Axel to cheat again by exploiting Miguel's damaged spine.
Mm-hmm.
They say he has a chance to permanently cripple him.
But Axel grows his own spine.
Yeah, Axel finally grows his own spine and disobeys his sensei. And then he just tells his sensei, his sensei's I'm ashamed of you. And he said, I'm ashamed of you. And walks off the franchise forever. Never see him again. Same with Zara after she gets beat. We never see her again.
Yeah, but she didn't have that kind of moment. But
no, she didn't.
But yeah, so Miguel won. He won big, but he only won just enough points to tie Cobra Kai with the Iron Dragons.
And so the tiebreaker is the sensei. So it's Johnny Lawrence versus Wolf. Which again, we knew it was telegraphed because the first time we meet Wolf, he's having a very poor interaction with Johnny Lawrence. They kind of set them up as rivals from the start.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of implied that Wolf is what Johnny would have been if he had stayed under the tutelage of Kreese and continued to win.
Yes.
If Daniel and Miyagi hadn't come into the picture and disrupted all of that, this is would have been where he ended up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. If he never lost to Daniel and he wasn't disowned by Kreese after that, which
he would have been more successful as a fighter and would have had more success in that range, but he also would have been a worse person.
Which also brings up this really excellent moment between Johnny and Kreese, where Kreese shows up to apologize to Johnny, and that specific moment in the parking lot after his loss to Daniel is brought up.
Yeah.
And Johnny
bravo to Martin Kove, who plays John Kreese.
Yes.
Great performance.
And Johnny just unloads all of the pain that he's been dealing with since that moment to Kreese. All that pain that Kreese gave him,
And Kreese is actually sympathetic and understanding and accepts it all. He doesn't argue against it. He has a great moment with Tori too, where he's kind of telling Tori that he's gonna get out of her life and that it's for the best and stuff. And she's like, but that's not what I want, why can't you still be a part of my life? You're still important to me. And so he has Kreese has these redemption moments, these really strong redemption moments throughout this final part of the season.
Oh yeah. And then we got ahead of the final, Sensei fight, we got Terry Silver on his boat scheming.
Yeah, planning to fucking attack Johnny's family to make him throw the fight.
Yeah, to throw Johnny off and make sure that he can't win the fight. And as he's scheming this, Kreese shows up to stop him.
Yeah.
And that's Kreese's final stop on his redemption tour.
He blows up Terry Silver's yacht with his cigar.
Yeah.
The two iconic symbols of those characters, the cigar and the yacht.
Yeah. He blows himself up along with Terry Silver, so they're both gone.
Apparently there was initially going to be a scene at the end, a post-credits type scene, where you were going to see, John Kreese again or something to imply he's still alive. You're going to see his hand or something like that to imply he was still alive, and they cut it because they said they were just in love with the idea that Kreese always somehow gets away or something, but that they just decided it wasn't good for the story.
Yeah,
so
it would have been stupid. Because, how?
Yeah.
They're in the middle of the ocean, and a ship blow up, and even if he survived the explosion, he's in the middle of the ocean with no boat or anything. You're telling me he's gonna swim to shore somehow?
Yeah. It was just it was a thing where it was their own vanity of loving the character and wanting to do something badass with the character that made them film the scene, I guess, and then they said no, we can't do this. This just doesn't work for the story,
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad they didn't do something like that.
That's the end of the penultimate episode, by the way, is that explosion.
Yeah, that's the penultimate.
So the final episode goes in, there's no Kreese, there's no Silver.
Yeah, Wolf is where's Silver? Because he apparently did get the memo that Silver blew up on a boat. But Wolf has this fight with Johnny for the first time that we ever see him. Johnny is terrified. He's terrified of Wolf. Wolf confronts him pre-fight in the locker room and pretty much basically manhandles him. It shows him how easily he could hurt him, and Johnny is just terrified, And Daniel's trying to help him, but nothing's getting through until Daniel decides to switch tracks and give him some John Kreese love. Daniel basically tells him what John Kreese would have told him. And that pumps Johnny up enough for him to start getting points and turning the tide.
Mm-hmm. And he wins.
Yeah, and he wins. Yeah, he wins, and everybody has a happy ending. And then the last scenes is Johnny
new crop of students, yeah. New crop of reject students.
Sam is going to Okinawa. Johnny's got a new crop of students that he's training.
Yeah, Sam and Miguel were together, but they were going to be going to different schools. Sam was going to be going to Okinawa, and Miguel's going to California. But Miguel says, I can defer my school and for a while and go to Okinawa and have one good farewell with you in Okinawa,
Tori and Robbie are offered multi-million-dollar sponsorship deals.
Mm-hmm.
To promote various things.
Which is good because both of those characters were kind of a bit directionless. Tori was poor, now on her own with her mom dead, didn't know kind of what to do, was kind of unsure about her affiliation with anything all the groups she was involved in. And now as a champion, she's now got this opportunity, she has a career path. And they did a similar thing with Robbie where he didn't have a clear-cut path into schools, what he could use to his benefit to get into some good schools. He really couldn't. And they were trying to figure out what he could do as a career path as an adult. And now, the two of them become, the professional fighters of the group.
Yeah, exactly. And Daniel's continuing being a sensei, too,
Yeah. They're doing a split where, they're keeping the dojos separate. Cobra Kai is Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do is Miyagi-Do, but they're sharing students.
Yeah, they're sharing students. Yeah.
Instead of trying to be one dojo, they're being two dojos that share.
They're not, butting up against each other.
Yeah. Stingray's back. He's involved.
Stingray. yeah, Stingray is involved.
He has his moment of glory at the end when he gives the kids some orders and they listen to him and he's they're listening to me.
Well, he's unfortunately the dojo is full up, but they're opening another Cobra Kai location and Stingray is going to lead that location. So Stingray's going to be a sensei too.
Yeah. There was a dust up between Hawk and Dimitri in this season we didn't talk about where they were going going to go to MIT together, and Hawk decided he didn't want to do that. And
didn't bring it up because, like, it's whatever.
But basically, Dimitri decides not to go to MIT either, so that the two of them can go to school together, and they're going to be tech bros. There's actually talk about them doing a spin-off about the two of them.
I hope they don't do that. That'd be funny. I mean, I like them, like, as part of the show, but a whole show about them would, I don't know.
I think it would be completely, it wouldn't be about karate or anything anymore. It would just be about their computer and robotics stuff with them.
Right. But yeah, I mean, and then it ends on like this wonderful, I love like the ending scene that they did choose, which is like Daniel is at this restaurant with Johnny, and Johnny's like off ordering something or going to the bathroom, something. He's off, and Daniel's sitting there, and there's this fly, and Daniel remembers the chopsticks with Mr. Miyagi, catching the flies with the chopsticks. And he picks up chopsticks and he starts doing it, and then Johnny shows up back and just like smacks the fly out of the air. This says, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like callbacks. Like when Johnny won the fight, Daniel like said, "You're all right, Johnny," or something like that, which is like a callback to the end of the first Karate Kid movie, the very end of the first Karate Kid movie, where Johnny grabs the trophy and hands it to Daniel and says, "You're all right, Larissa."
Yeah, there's like, like at the end, like when Johnny turns the tide against Wolf, like sweep the leg. He sweeps his leg, even though like at the end, sweep the leg was because they had injured Daniel's leg. But he does the sweep and he catches Wolf off guard. Excellent. It was really fantastic, perfect ending. I loved this was a show about Johnny Lawrence and Johnny's story, and they bring his story arc full circle. Really cool what they did.
Yeah, I think there's some really cheesy bits in this show, but I think they work because it kind of just has that like 80s nostalgia vibe, so it just kind of rolls with like the cheesiness. And I think a lot of times that just works okay. Like, the cheesiest scene in this whole season is when they're doing the VR training.
Yes, I hated
and it's
that.
so cheesy and it's so bad, and
it was like the dumbest thing.
But then after it was over, I said it kind of works in a way because it's kind of the tone of the show,
Yeah. One of the things like I appreciate about the show is it's a comedy. Has been leaning more and more into drama, especially this season. But it's like a drama comedy based on the Karate Kid, but never goes into being a parody of the material. Like it never crosses over into being a parody.
It always honors it.
Yes.
Which is
always like, yeah.
So let's talk about where this franchise is going, because there's going to be a movie.
There's a movie starring, Ralph Macchio and Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan reprising his role from the reboot with Jason
Mr.
Smith.
Han, I think, is his character's name, I think.
Yeah, Mr. Han. Yeah, Mr. Han.
I have to admit, I have not seen that movie.
I have not watched it either. It's the only movie in the franchise I have not watched.
I haven't seen that, and I haven't seen the next Karate Kid, the one with Hilary Swank.
I watched that one. Hilary Swank did not appear in Cobra Kai, like people were predicting. I didn't think she would. It's
unfortunate.
It's just really tough to fight it in, because like the only connection she has is through Mr. Miyagi, and nobody knows she exists. So like,
they should have just did a phone-in cameo. Like they should have just showed her. Like when they showed
she'd be calling.
They showed Daniel's old friends or whatever, like watching the fight.
Yes.
They should have showed her watching the fight on TV.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Right.
They should have said like, "Hey, Miss Swank, we want to film you for the series. We'll just film you in a place that's made up to look like your house, and all you have to do is show up and like watch something on TV and like cheer or something, and that's it."
but that didn't happen. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about it. Ralph Macchio did say, like, if Karate Kid Legends is successful, he wants to do a Cobra Kai movie. It's like, well, what could a Cobra Kai movie be about? Well, like, obviously they killed the two big bads of the Karate Kid, right? Like, they killed them off, but Sensei Wolf, he's the new big bad, right? He's still out there.
I think it could work, but only if they give it time.
Yes.
Like, I think if Karate Kid Legends is successful and then they go like, okay, well, let's immediately jump into the Cobra Kai movie, I'm like, no, don't do that, Give it time. Wait until, like, the kids would have been, graduated from college and, like, let things kind of settle, and then you can bring that into a new story.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I'm not too terribly interested in Legends. I'll watch it, but I'm not, like...
I'll watch it just to see,
I'm gonna have to go and watch the Jaden Smith one now.
Yeah. I'll watch Legends to see how it goes. Really, because like it's really about like this character from the reboot and like Daniel LaRusso mentoring this new kid together. Okay.
Yeah, I'll watch it. I'm not too terribly excited about it. I kind of wish that it was more tied into like Cobra Kai in a way, you know?
Right, yeah.
But it just seems like the only recurring character from Cobra Kai is LaRusso.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, okay.
It seems like it's probably like kind of detached from Cobra Kai, like in a big way.
Yeah, like maybe too much.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that it's detached, but it should be maybe a little more connection than there is. It seems to be, at least. I don't know. Maybe there is enough connection that when we actually watch it, but it seems like he's the only one in it. So it's like, I don't know. So as a whole, what did you think of Cobra Kai as a series?
You know, I thought it was fantastic. It was kind of like this funny idea of taking this meme that was kind of prevalent, you know, like Johnny Lawrence is the real protagonist of the Karate Kid, and then making that like an entire series.
Yeah.
And they did it.
And taking it seriously.
Yeah, take it seriously. And they did it with like so much heart, so much genuine earnestness, and not in a way that took anything away from Daniel LaRusso or anything, but it was kind of like inventive the way they did that. I thought that was like pretty clever.
Yeah, I think it's nostalgia done right. This is the right way to do kind of nostalgia for something like Karate Kid. I think they did it right with a right balance of kind of cheesiness, humor, action. It's kind of like watching wrestling almost, you know? It's like, you know, it's kind of cheesy, but you just kind of are into it anyways, you know? And I think they kind of nailed that balance, and it's like hard balance to nail, and I think they did a really good job of it.
Oh, absolutely.
But that is it for this week's podcast. Next week, we are going to be talking about Nosferatu. Will's finally going to get a chance to see it. I'm going to go watch it again, and we're going to talk about the new Roger Eggers masterpiece, Nosferatu. So until then, you can follow me on Twitter. I am at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Voxel Hero. You can use those same usernames for Blue Sky. We're there as well. You can also check out our website, thetotaliscreen.com. If you go to our website and open up a container story to any of our podcast episodes, scroll down to the bottom paragraph. You'll find all the links to our RSS feed, our social accounts, everything's there. You can check it out. You'll also find a link there to our YouTube page where you can find the entire backlog of our podcast available there, as well as additional content. And you can subscribe to this podcast through your favorite podcast client of choice, like Apple Podcasts or Pocket Casts. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.